Hey guys, Fskin here. Let me preface this video by saying thank you to everyone who watched and commented on my speedrun videos. It was very fun getting the world records for Barony, and I'm glad that all of you enjoyed it, even though some of them looked like this. Totally not my fault though. Anyway, I was interested in making some fun little Barony videos, and you know, I'm a sucker for stupid content like tier lists that nobody really needs but you find on the internet anyway. So let's do it. Artifacts. What are artifacts in Barony? Artifacts are unique items you can find during your run, which have special properties. They are usually the best items of their kind, they never degrade, and they look pretty cool. But like with any category of items in any video game, there are some that are better and some that are worse. So I'm going to analyze, I'm going to judge, and I'm going to tier them accordingly. Just remember that anything that I say in this video is the objective truth. If you disagree, you have no idea what you're talking about. So with that out of the way, let's get going. First one on the list is the artifact Axe, also known as Parachute. So in my opinion, Parachute is good for multiple reasons. First of all, you can get it damn early. The only way to get Parachute is to kill Funny Bones, who is the skeleton mini-boss. This means that Parachute can be acquired as early as floor 1, which for an artifact is just insane. The only downside is that Parachute will be decrepit, but for a weapon that will never break and has cool bonus stats like a slowing chance and a bonus damage chance, that's just pretty good. I mean, you will have it early and you'll have plenty of opportunities to repair it. If you stumble upon the Parachute in the early game, then you basically already have your designated weapon for the rest of the game, because it will never break, and since it's dropped in a blessed state, when you repair it, it's going to have the exact same base damage as the other best weapon in the game, which is the Crystal Axe. So yeah, Parachute is just straight up the best axe you can get, and you can get it on floor 1. And when you find Parachute that early, you could find a feather, find blanks, pump all of your enchant weapons into that thing, and it's gonna become the craziest slayer of Barony monsters, Inc., whatever. Also, axes are great because in my opinion they have the best legendary bonus, which is a 100% chance of slowing things, which is invaluable for kiting. Altogether, I think Parachute is a solid A tier. It may be higher if the early game wasn't full of skeletons, and axes are sadly weak against skeletons, but it is what it is. The game is sometimes kind of balanced. So we've already warmed up to the artifact weapons, so let's take a look at Durnvin. Similar to Parachute, Durnvin is an artifact weapon, but it's the artifact sword. And also similar to Parachute, there is no guaranteed way of getting it unless you fight the spider boss, whose name I momentarily forgot. You can get Durnvin pretty damn early as well. Earliest would be floor 2 when the spiders start spawning. The main difference is that spider boss is definitely harder to kill than Funny Bones, because Funny Bones is one funny guy. The spider boss spawns with multiple spiders by its side. The spiders are damn fast, they are basically unkiteable at that point in the game, so unless you have the right tools, you are probably gonna get Durnvin in the swamp at the earliest. If you happen to get Durnvin early though, it's pretty good because it has smite damage, which is great against skeletons, ghouls, and later on even demons. It burns people, which is also nice. The only class that really benefits from having a great sword is like the ninja, which incidentally is one of the best classes in the game. Of course, if you play a goblin, you don't really care about what weapon you use. But yeah, the classes that really synergize with swords are kind of limited. There's also a small nitpick I have about Durnvin, because I have noticed that the burning effect kind of nerfs one of the best early utility spells, which is Sleep. Sleep is cheap, Sleep is great at controlling crowds, mobs in general, and the thing is, when they burn, they wake up. Don't get me wrong, this is not a deal breaker. I'm not saying, oh, this makes Durnvin bad. It's just one of these situations where the effect of the weapon may be more detrimental than it seems. Combined with the fact that it's harder to get in the really early game compared to Parachute, makes Durnvin the slightly worse weapon in my opinion. This is why I place it in B tier. It barely makes B tier as opposed to A tier because I can just name some detriments about the item which I couldn't name for Parachute. Next on the list, let's discuss some of the armor pieces, and let's start with the artifact footwear, which are the Oracle's Treads. So the Oracle's Treads are, in my opinion, quite straightforward. When repaired, they give you +4 AC and lesser warning. So you may have noticed that the artifact items all have some kind of gimmick, and for the treads, the gimmick is lesser warning. And in my opinion, lesser warning is not that attractive of a gimmick. Let's just say for footwear you could have boots of levitation, boots of water walking, boots of dexterity, stuff like that. Lesser warning is basically just, okay, a mob moves, you can see it on the map, it's just a bad version of regular warning. And the AC is decent, I guess, but overall kind of underwhelming for an artifact, especially when compared to what the rest of the footwear category can actually do. But to argue in favor of the Oracle's Treads, you find them in the Haunted Castle, which in my opinion is one of the most important secret levels in the game. You should usually go there to farm XP, there's a lot of loot, so while you're already there, why not bring them with you? Because they are free, and all the artifacts, I have to state that all the artifacts are valuable. So even if you don't use the treads, you can always sell them. So overall, it's a perfect combination of not super useful, but may as well get it. It's not hard to get. So it's firmly in B tier, somewhere below Durnvin. Like, there's a gap between Durnvin and the treads in terms of usefulness, but maybe we'll get some stuff between them to make that apparent. A little bit further in the run, you get one of the artifact weapons in another secret level, which is the Minotaur Maze. And in this Minotaur Maze, you find the awesome artifact of Gungnir. So Gungnir is the artifact polearm. It's an artifact spare, which you find in the center of the Minotaur Maze while you run away from the Minotaur, or in case you've already killed it, you can get it by placing the orb, collecting it, you can also break the walls, whatever. It just lies there and it's free, you can get it. So pole arms are pretty nice because they synergize with very straightforward good classes like the warrior. The wizard is also trained in pole arms, so you may as well get it for your mage build because it doesn't hurt. The Minotaur Maze is a great place to be anyway because you get the red orb. Red orb helps you against Hercs. Even if you don't need it for Hercs, you can always use it in Hamlet to trade for some goodies for the secret merchant. So Minotaur Maze, just a good place to be in general. So same as Oracle's Treads, while you're there, may as well get Gungnir. And the big reason why I'm inclined to give Gungnir a better rating than the other weapons is just consistency. Because for Parachute, for Durnvin, you need to be lucky and find one of these mini-bosses and beat the mini-bosses. And the thing is, skeletons don't spawn past the mines. Spiders don't spawn past the swamp, so once you've passed those biomes, there's no way of getting these items. Gungnir is different, it always spawns in the Minotaur Maze, and there is even a special NPC whose name I forgot, who also uses Gungnir, so if you find that NPC, you could basically find Gungnir anywhere in the dungeon, even on the earliest floors. So it's one of the most accessible weapons. Pole arms in general are just good, period. They are, in my opinion, not as good as the axe, but the legendary bonus pushes people back, it gives knockback, and combined with the fact that there's a lot of class synergy, I'm inclined to give Gungnir an S tier rating. It's just a great artifact weapon, it has good stats, like every artifact, it's found consistently, the weapon category is good, so overall, just a really good artifact. Sharur. Sharur is the artifact mace, which can be found by slaying the Potato King or trading an orb with the secret merchant in a hamlet. So the accessibility is there, let's look at the stats. So as the other artifact weapons, Sharur is pretty good, like you won't find a better mace, and the class synergy is also pretty good. I mean, think about who uses maces. The best mace classes are probably the Sexton and the Cleric, which are both magic heavy, and that synergizes with Sharur's gimmick, which is to boost your MP regeneration. Maces are not my favorite weapon type. I think their legendary bonus is kind of bad. Not terrible, but bad in comparison. It's not consistent, there's a chance of paralysis, and of course it would be overpowered if it were 100% paralysis, but just hitting someone and not knowing whether they're going to be paralyzed or not is just a little bit I mean, you can react to it, but I would always rather have one of the other more consistent weapon types. But maces in general are pretty good. They deal extra damage to like crystal golems, even cockatrices, vampires, skeletons, although skeletons are kind of irrelevant by the time you get Sharur. They are mainly underwhelming against insectoids, which is kind of a shame, but well, needs a drawback, I guess. Also, Sharur talks to you. This has no bearing on its place on the tier list, but it's a gimmick, it's there. Overall, I think Sharur is decent, it's quite accessible, it has good synergies with the classes it's good with. And yeah, I see no reason not to put it into A tier. I'm just gonna put it below Parachute, because Parachute can be acquired so early in the game and axes are just straight up better. So it has a little bit of an edge over Sharur. Got it, because it's an axe and maces don't have edge, yeah, whatever. Jin's Gauntlets. You always get the Jin's Gauntlets in the Sokoban secret level, which is basically a free artifact, because Sokoban is always the same deal. There's no way you're going to die in Sokoban unless you are basically brain dead. So yeah, the Jin's Gauntlets are very easy to acquire. They don't have the best AC, but they have magic resistance. As far as I'm concerned, magic resistance on gauntlets is a unique trait, and I think it's always good when you can basically have a trait that's usually assigned to something like the ring slot, which is a very useful slot, and have it on a different item, because this frees up your rings. You don't have to use a ring of magic resistance when you have the Jin's Gauntlets, and I think that's pretty good. Some people may find the gauntlets to be underwhelming because, oh, it's just resistance and it doesn't give me a lot of AC, but I think it's actually quite decent for an armor piece. So I'm inclined to give the Jin's Gauntlets like a B tiering. I'm not gonna give it an A because I think there are a lot of runs where I just didn't use the Jin's Gauntlets because I had gauntlets with much higher AC. And I valued that over the magic resistance. But I think for what they are quite decent. I think they firmly belong into the middle of B tier. Also, if you don't like them, sell them. Whatever, dude. The Dragon's Mail is the artifact breastpiece, and it looks damn swell on your character, you have to admit that. But in my opinion, the Dragon's Mail is not that great of an artifact. It suffers from what I call the post-Herx syndrome. And that syndrome means that everything that happens post-Baron Herx should be with you having a quite strong build already. This means that every new item you get is basically competing against an already good, well-rounded kit, and there's not much that can make a huge difference at that point. But let's look at the stats. The Dragon's Mail, when repaired fully, gives you +6 AC, which is more than the Crystal Breastpiece, so it's just straight up the best breastpiece in the game. And it gives you +1 HP regeneration, which is pretty nice. So most of the time, unless you've already put enchant armor into your breastpiece, you will probably want to don the Dragon's Mail. I just think at that point in the game, the HP regen does just not make that much of a difference. You should be strong at the Crystal Caves. You should have spells of healing, spells of Troll's Blood, ideally, healing potions. You should have everything you need. And then look where you get the Dragon's Mail. You get it in the Cockatrice's Lair, which in my opinion is one of the more challenging secret levels in the game. It's full of forced encounters, it's full of kobolds, which are a pain in the ass. You can't skip most of them, so if you're a magic user, they are a real pain in the butt to kill. You probably have to bring some bear traps or stuff like that. And you get the Dragon's Mail as the main price of the Cockatrice's Lair, and it's not that it's not worth it, I just think at that point in the game, it's nothing special anymore. This is why, due to post-Herc syndrome, I'm going to put this into C tier. It's nice to have, but it doesn't wow you anymore. Also, even if you wanted to sell it, you should already have a lot of gold. Hamlet is past you. Yeah, even in a monetary sense, doesn't make that much of a difference. Looks pretty damn good though. Next up is the artifact bow. Christ and Kratos is, I think, one of the more interesting artifacts in the game. What it does is there's a chance with every shot that the arrow is a randomized quiver arrow. So you can just shoot and it might come out as a fire arrow. And if you have a quiver, if you have it equipped, Chrysolacatos makes it so only every second shot is actually taken out of the quiver, so you basically have double ammo. Honestly, that's pretty damn cool and pretty fun to use. Now, nevertheless, I am inclined to give this a rating in C tier, above the Dragon's Mail. But the reason is the means of acquiring it. You can get Chrysolacatos in Hamlet by bringing the green orb, which is nice, kind of late. And the other means of acquiring it is entering the underworld. Between the mines and the swamp, you can go in here and you are in the underworld. So the underworld, that early in the game, is actually kind of a bad place to be. It's hard to get through, there are shadows, and the problem is ranged. In my opinion, ranged is probably the worst specialization in the game as far as damage goes. It's super fun, I love playing ranged. It's just not as good as both melee and magic. If you go into the underworld, ranged is probably the worst thing you can bring. There's not much space, the shadows are going to rush you and annoy the hell out of you. If you have levitation, like a permanent means of levitation, it's not as bad, but getting it that early is kind of hard. You'd have to find like a ring or like a cloak of levitation or maybe boots, and all you've had before that point is the mines, so you'd have to be quite lucky to find something like that. So yeah, actually going through the underworld, beating Artemis and getting Chrysolacatos early in the game, where it matters the most, is very challenging, might be the most challenging artifact to get. And when you get it late in the game, or like in Hamlet, which I guess is like the half point of the game, it's neither overwhelming nor underwhelming. It's just straight whelming. It's okay. Actually, compared to others, I would probably have to put it to B tier, maybe even push it up to a low A tier, but honestly, ranged just isn't it. It's just the category it's in, the fact that it's a bow, kind of drags it down. Makes me kind of sad, but I'm gonna have to give Chrysalikatos a C tier. I kind of feel bad discriminating against weapon types. Next up is the Wraith's Gown. It's the artifact Cloak. And just looking at the pure stats, this has potential to be a great artifact. It doesn't have AC, but it lets you levitate. Levitation in the Cloak slot is pretty cool. The coolest thing about it is probably the +1 MP regen. Up until that point, MP regen without any kind of detriment is pretty rare, so just having flat out MP regen is just great for mages. And what's more, if you combine it with Sharur, you have insane MP regen. So as you're watching me put the Wraith's Gown into D tier, you are probably wondering, F-Skin, are you insane? In a vacuum, this looks like a great artifact. And that's the point, in a vacuum. Theoretically, it's a really good item. The problem is, you acquire it on floor 33. Floor 33, that's like one floor away from the last boss in the game. Bram's Castle as a secret level is not hard at that point. It shouldn't be hard, in my opinion. If you play it right, it should be quite easy. And getting the Wraith's Gown at that point is pointless. In my opinion, on floor 33, you should already have all the tools of beating the shit out of the twins. You should have enough mana, you should have enough health, you should already have a means of levitation. So the Wraith's Gown, as good as it seems to be, just doesn't make a difference at that point. If it's even worse than the Dragon's Mail. At least you get the Dragon's Mail in the Crystal Caves, which is basically your introduction to the late game. But by the Citadel, I really believe the Wraith's Gown is not going to make that much of a difference. As I said, with Sharur and the insane MP regen you get through that might be the only niche where it's kind of useful. And even then, the regen is not as good as just being able to pop a couple of potions and being at full MP. And if you're a magic user and you didn't bring enough potions that late into the game, you just messed up. So I think that one niche case shouldn't even be a case, it shouldn't happen. So this firmly places Wraith's Gown in D tier for me. Good in theory, practically, basically useless. Usually at that point you have a Cloak of Protection or Magic Reflection, and those are going to be way more useful than this. Looks cool though. I like the pure white with the red accents, so looks pretty swell, You may have already guessed it, but I saved the best thing for last. In my opinion, the Sphinx's Cask is the best artifact in the game. I put it on top in S tier. Why? Simple reasons. First of all, the stats are insane. You get +3 AC, +8 intelligence. Think about that, +8 intelligence. +3 AC, this means it's good for everyone. It's good for warriors, it's great for magic users, and you get it damn early. Floor 2, Gnomish Mines. You can have this great of an item in the Gnomish Mines. The AC is going to help your blocking a lot. The intelligence just ups your magic damage by a lot. And I know what most of you may be thinking. Gnomish Mines, scary, I hate them gnomes. But honestly, you're going to die to those gnomes like what, 50 times, 100 times. At some point you just know how they think. You see a gnome, you're going to strafe them lightning shots, you're just gonna bully them at corners, you're just going to annihilate every gnome in your path. Gnomish Mines at some point is just not going to be a problem anymore. And when it's not a problem, this means that the best artifact in the game, which you get on floor 2, is kind of easy to acquire. So this is just a combination of everything. This early in the game, it's crazy good item, not that hard to get. The only downside is the weight. Like if you're like a ranged player, the Sphinx's Cask may kind of bog you down. But honestly, that's a ranged problem. If you're a ranged user, you made the mistake when you made a ranged character. There's no other way of putting it. I'm sorry for you. Go to the underworld, beat Artemis, get the Chrysler car, whatever, get your artifact. The Sphinx's Cask is not for you, but it's the best. So, we are not done yet. Some of you may have realized a couple of things. First of all, the Sphinx's Cask used to have a different name. Why did it used to have a different name? Because the slot for faceware used to only be populated by glasses. Glasses are cool, I love glasses. They are so cool that I even got some in real life. But there wasn't a lot of variety. So we have a lot of faceware, we have like visors, we have like a grass you can put into your mouth for whatever reason. There's a lot of variety now. Great update. And since the slot has been populated, there is also an artifact item for that slot. The last thing to raid is the Valkyrie's Veil. So I have done an in-depth analysis compared to all the other artifacts in the game, and I can safely say that this latest addition to the artifact roster is most definitely a very, very solid F tier. The Valkyrie's Veil is complete garbage.
No, F-Skin, how can this be? How can an artifact be so bad that it's in F tier?
I can explain. First of all, I'm not saying that the Valkyrie's Veil is detrimental to you. If there was an artifact that was detrimental to its user, I would have to think of a new letter to describe it. F tier is completely adequate to describe the Valkyrie's Veil. First of all, the Valkyrie's Veil is a glorified version of a different item. The Crystal Visor does exactly the same thing. It has the same AC and the same gimmick. The only difference is the gimmick is stronger with the Valkyrie's Veil. Now, what is the gimmick? It improves your melee skill stat. It improves all of your melee skills by 10. Now you may ask, why is that so bad? And I will say, think about it. You improve your melee skill anyway. When do you get the Valkyrie's Veil? You get it in Hamlet. It's the earliest point where you can get the Valkyrie's Veil. You get it in Hamlet. At that point, your melee skill stat should already be reasonably high. Even if it isn't, it's the half point of the entire game, so plus 10 is not going to make that much of a difference. You can enchant it and up it to 25, which is kind of better, but you're going to reach that point anyway. This means that the Valkyrie's Veil is the only artifact in the game that basically loses its value completely over the course of the game. Because when you're naturally on melee skill 100, you don't need it anymore. It's just a little bit of bonus AC. You're gonna reach that point earlier, but as I said, it's not going to make that much of a difference. It would make a difference if it was super early in the game. Let's say instead of the Sphinx's Cask, you had the Valkyrie's Veil, you repair it, and then instead of being a, I don't know, polearm 10 noob, you suddenly have polearm 35. Okay, that's cool. But Hamlet, super late, man. It's just not that great. The only kind of redeeming thing is that nothing in the faceware category has much use for the late game anyway. What else are you going to wear to the twins? It doesn't really matter that much. So the Valkyrie's Veil is like an F tier artifact, but probably a S tier faceware, because faceware is not that super useful for the really serious parts of the games anyway. But the worst thing about the Valkyrie's Veil is you find it in Hamlet and you have to buy it. You have to bring the red orb, which means you can't use the red orb for Herx, so if you struggle against Herx, that's already a challenge. And you have to buy it for 3,000 gold. 3,000 gold for a subpar artifact. So you don't even have one of the best things about bad artifacts, the fact that you can sell them. You can't sell the Valkyrie's Veil, you're just going to lose money by acquiring it. So overall, the means of acquiring it, the point in the game where you get it, and just the gimmick in general make this a complete F-tier artifact. The only reason why I would ever want the Valkyrie's Veil is to get the achievements and to look in the mirror and say, hey, you're a cool guy, you got every artifact in the game, man, you're so cool, dude, look at you, look at you. Yeah, that's basically it. What a complete piece of garbage. So, this ends the tier list. This is my objective, truth, opinion, of course. If you have something else to say, if you want to criticize, if you have any feedback for the video format in general, just put it in the comments. This is a fun little project I made, so there are more videos on Barony on the internet, because I really like this game, if you haven't been able to tell by now. And thanks for watching. I'm looking forward to comments, and I'm probably gonna make some more content. I have a couple of ideas, and see you around, guys.